What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on D's Analysis. We're going to be looking at MSTR, Microstrategy, and Bitcoin, looking at some different indicators and charts. So we've been riding our long-term established channel, the bottom part of it. Hopefully we are getting our breakout. We'll see, of course, what happens with time, but today was a pretty solid day. As you can see, we are breaking out of this downward sloping trend line. We got the close last week. Looks like we got a retest and we're pushing up higher. But we are still in the middle of our golden zone that has been giving us a tough time for maybe a month and a half, 2 months, something around there. So we found a lot of rejection at that point, and now we are fighting to break through it. I do think that we need to get a close back above the 618 on the weekly. That'll increase our odds of making it to that 450 region. But right now, we are looking pretty good with this last move that we saw today, as we closed above one of the targets that we were speaking of in the past couple of videos. We were saying getting a daily close here will increase our odds of potentially making it either to the top of this golden zone, so at 422, or one of these levels here at these wicks. So it's going to be either at that one or this one is where we'll probably more than likely find some resistance along the way. So this was a very good day to see. It was a 4.65% day. And from the bottom of the wick, you can see that we actually pushed up around 5% or so. So it was a pretty solid day overall. When you take a look at the 4 hour, you can see we gapped up a little bit, came back to close it, retesting our breakout zone, and ended up with a nice engulfing candle to finish the day above this last wick here at 414. And we got that daily close at around 415, which is a beautiful sign to see. Hopefully the momentum can continue, and then we can get some volume kicking up for MSTR. That would be ideal. This was a pretty decent volume day. When you look here, you can see it's larger than most of the green candles that we've been getting. The average green candle has roughly been around this area here. You can see most of them are there or underneath. We had a couple larger green days, but this was a pretty nice day, especially towards the end of the day. We saw most of that volume kicking up at the end. So if we had that volume all the way throughout the day, it probably would have been even higher. And we did see Bitcoin break all-time highs today, but just temporarily. So right now, we are starting to think that maybe we are at one of these points where we're actually starting to break out. So it looks like we're potentially getting to this point right here. We'll see, of course. Hopefully it's the same thing in this region here. And this is the beginning of a larger move. Like I said, we will be looking to find some kind of resistance along this level here of the midline, which lines up around 650 to roughly $700, depending on when we touch it. Maybe we'll find resistance there. Maybe we chop sideways. Maybe we come back to the bottom of the range before making a move back up. Of course, it all depends on Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to be the determining factor, of course, and hopefully we get a large move to the upside. Still have the same thoughts and views with our Fibonacci zones. When we pull the fib off of this bull flag here, starting at this zone, you can see a lot of time was spent here at the 1618. Overall, this is kind of like the average price when you factor in this entire move. We've spent a lot of time bouncing off of it, underneath it, and so on. So that's going to be another level that we'll be looking for this move up here. But as you can see, we spent most of our time, or we got our top, I would say, at the 2618 to the 2272. Right in that area. So those were the key levels. And we did touch the 3272, but that was a very aggressive blow off top. So I'm not too sure if that will happen again, because you can't really factor in that kind of FOMO and stuff like that. When we take a look here, if we were to chop at that 1618, that means the average price would be around $800, chopping above and below that level, and maybe being the peak of 1,000 if we get an aggressive move from Bitcoin and a long, aggressive, durable move from Bitcoin. Of course, it doesn't have to happen, so don't expect it, but be prepared just in case. And if you have a long-term mindset, like I said, and you can dollar cost average from this cycle into the next, you can potentially just trim off a little bit of profits and maybe sit on cash until we get some kind of pullback, and then you can maybe DCA back in or lump sum back in. Of course, everybody's plan is different, so make sure you're prepared so whenever the opportunity arises, you can take advantage of it. But we are still looking at these targets of 2618, 2272, and this is the real main target that I'm watching out for, which is this midline at the 1618. If we do get an aggressive move to the upside, maybe we chop around this region. Maybe that's where most of our price action will be around. We'll see, of course. Overall, today was a good day. Hopefully it continues throughout the week. And of course, like I said, in the beginning of the week, an ideal close would be above 431, and even better would be above around 450, because that's really the all-time high. Really, in my eyes, I see it as this level here. I kind of just don't even factor this in. Yes, you have to factor it in to some degree, but this is the most important level in my opinion. On the weekly SMA, we have our SMA pushing back up. It's looking pretty solid. It is getting closer and closer to price, but we still have a ways to go. Here on the daily, our 50 is still above our 20, so hopefully we can get the 20 to push back above the 50 and get a nice bullish move like we saw here at this point. Last time we got that 20 pushing above the 50 was a very aggressive move to the upside, so maybe we get the cross and a nice push up. On the weekly EMA, you can see on the 8 EMA, we broke above, retested, and absolutely shot off of it, and we tried making our way down to it, but the momentum was too bullish and we didn't even touch it. Here on the daily, we did touch it again, and that was out of that breakoff point where we were breaking out, and we touched it this morning and absolutely catapulted above and got that close that we were talking about. So that's a very beautiful sign. Nice to see. Hopefully that trend can continue. Hopefully it's not just a one-day thing. MSTR is known for doing that, where we have one amazing day and then a crap day the next day to follow up. So hopefully we can get a second one and a third one and so on. Because once this thing catches momentum, that's when it's hard to stop. Just as many red days as we were seeing, that's how many green days you'll see when it actually gets going. But of course, that's depending on Bitcoin. So here on the RSI, higher highs, higher lows, got our bounce off the yellow moving average, and this thing is starting to push up higher. We should find some resistance around that 67 region, and then eventually we can get to the overbought territory at 70. Here on the daily, looks like we kind of had like an inverse head and shoulders or something, some sort of that, while creating an upward sloping trend line. So this is looking pretty good. Maybe once we break 61.4, we find a resistance at 65, and then we can make it to the overbought territory for a nice extended sustainable move. When you take a look here at the weekly MACD, we got to push back down, but we stayed in bullish territory, and we started to create like a little bull flag off of that move off the bottom here, and we lost our momentum, but it looks like we got the green flip, and it's starting to build a little bit of momentum to the upside, and the blue is starting to separate from the orange. So let's see if this momentum can carry on into the next upcoming weeks. And here on the daily is kind of the same concept, where we were around the neutral zone, and then we started to push back up, and we're starting to see an increase in momentum and volume, and the blue is starting to separate nicely from this orange moving average. Here on Bitcoin, we are starting to look pretty good. As you can see, we got a nice push up to around 112, 140. And on the daily, you can see we closed at 111, 316, which is the second highest close after this highest close here on May 22nd. And we wicked up, so maybe we retest and then we can fill this wick and push up higher. Hopefully, we did get rejected relatively quickly. Once we pushed up top, we got rejected almost instantly. So hopefully we can build some momentum and get a nice parabolic move to the upside. This thing has been sleeping for an extended period at this point. You can see we've kind of just been chopping sideways. Honestly, ever since May 9th, kind of just been trending sideways and then slowly trending upward since June 24th or 23rd. We've kind of just been slowly grinding upward. But overall, we're still kind of just in this range. So hopefully you can break out of it, use that as support, and push up to this trend line that we have established above that dates back to 2021. And as we said previously, once we get to this midline, we have to be aware that we could get some kind of retracement. If we make it there, and when we make it there, we could get some kind of retracement, maybe a little bit of sideways action before continuing the move up. If the move continues up, of course, it's going to be depending on global liquidity and economic conditions, what the Federal Reserve is doing, all of that good stuff. But right now, we're looking pretty good as we close above our key level that we were speaking of, which was these wicks here, which was around that 110 region. We closed above it, which is awesome. We wanted to see it. We wanted to see it close on the 4 hour, but we got it on the daily, which is even better and stronger. So that's a stronger sign. Maybe, like I said, we'll get a retest and push up higher. Hopefully fill that wick. And as you can see here on the 4 hour, we're looking very good. A nice almost engulfing candle, retest, and let's see what this next candle ends up doing. It was kind of a slow breakout where we broke out, retested, tried pushing back up, and it ended up becoming more of a double bottom more than anything. As you can see here, you can see that being formed with that second retest that formed the double bottom, and then we ended up pushing up higher. So hopefully this is a start of a nice aggressive move. We'll see, of course. Bitcoin has been kind of taking its time with low volume, so hopefully we get a nice explosive move. As you can see, we do have core inflation coming out on July 15th. So that's what this little red logo here is at the bottom. That usually means high impact news. So we'll see how it reacts when we get to that point. Maybe we start trending upward and maybe we touch this area, or maybe we're still in this area when July 15th rolls around, and maybe that's what catapults us or actually brings us back into the range. So that's always a possibility as well. You have to always look at both sides of the spectrum. When you look at these last two moves here, you can see they do look pretty similar, where we had this key level of resistance and we absolutely catapulted through. And this one was constantly, knocking on the door and eventually just broke through. And it kind of looks like we got the same thing here, where we just kept pushing up to it, getting rejected, and we finally just broke through. So this indication right here of the close here on the monthly was a very good sign as we closed inside of this zone and these wicks, and now we're actually breaking through. So we were talking about that close being a very, very bullish sign, and it looks like it's playing out. It's just a matter of how high we go at this point. Like I said, I do think we'll find some resistance at this line, but more than likely more resistance at this dotted line, which is the middle of the channel. And then on to Tether dominance. We were talking about this yesterday, actually, and we were saying how bearish it was looking because we were just constantly hugging that trend line. So as you can see, we kind of like touched the trend line, shot up, touch it, shot up, touch it, shot up. This time we touched it and then we just started hugging it. And that started to give me the indication that, hey, we might be breaking through this. And that's exactly what ended up happening. We were talking about it in the last video where we were saying, if we can get a close underneath this upward sloping trend line, this is going to open up the chance of us touching this region. And that's exactly what we did. We got a sharp move to the downside and Bitcoin ended up touching all-time highs. So now that we closed inside of this zone, got rejection right now, it's looking like this move could actually extend even further down. Hopefully it does, and that'll ignite a larger move on Bitcoin, which we'll see, of course, with time. I'll keep you guys updated, of course. Maybe we get more of a push up here and then the rejection. And we could find rejection or support, in the middle of this zone around this region before stumbling and then being able to push down further. But if that were to happen, then we should get a pretty decent move on Bitcoin, I would imagine, because they're inversely correlated. As we said previously, we already know that. So I'll show you guys here on the chart really quick. Every time we see a local top, you can see that we touch this blue line here. So as Tether dominance drops, Bitcoin finds its local tops. So you see the red dot, local top, and so on. You can see it happening multiple times. So we'll see if we see this bottom again and this move extends up higher. That's all I have for you guys. Make sure you guys like and subscribe on this video. I appreciate all your support, and I'll see you guys in the next one.